So Tuesday was pretty uneventful around here. Jeremy was out running errands to the welding supply store to pick up some argon bottles for the welders. Then he stopped over at Harbor Freight to pick up a couple things for Vicky for Tommy's birthday. I, on the other hand, spent most of my day out cleaning and organizing tools in the shop and playing with the dogs. Kenny and Harlie made it back over here this afternoon, and Kenny got my nitrous filling station all set up so I could fill bottles. And Harlie got busy shipping out orders. She's got a lot of Kenny Powers shirts to ship out, plus all the backlog on my stuff. By early evening, Vicky was starting to cook dinner as the sun was going down, and she cooked enough hamburgers and brats for everybody. It was such a nice evening we ate dinner out on the patio. I think the dogs ate more than Josiah did. He was too busy racing Billy on No Limit. Kenny built a little campfire out back so we could make s'mores, and then I went out to the shop to fire up the Malibu and get it ready to go make a test hit tonight. It sounds like I may have a couple little grudge races later this week in the evening, if everything works out. So I want to make sure I've got this thing dialed in as best I can possibly get it before anybody comes woofing. Luckily, Robbie had time to come out and help me pour puddles and back me up. Now this is the first time I've really tried to test this car with a puddle burnout, and it hooks much harder than I thought it would. I'm going to have to tighten the front shocks up to try and keep it from pulling the front wheels off the ground and unloading the rear tires about 3 or 4 feet out. So I drove back to the shop real quick, made some shock adjustments, turned the timing back just a little bit, rejetted the plate, and I go back out to throw a little bit more power at this thing and see if it'll hold. On the way out to the test spot, I went ahead and reprogrammed my nitrous controller to slow the ramp down a little bit, because an A to B pass is always better than knocking the tire off and wasting a hit out on the street. The test pass on a bigger jet and a tighter front shock setting worked out pretty decent. The front shocks are still a little bit loose, but I can correct that when I get back to the shop. The most important thing is I didn't waste any nitrous, I didn't waste any test passes, and I'm making really good progress on the suspension. I think a few more test hits on this thing and I'll have it dialed in right where I need it. So I closed up shop and then got back up Wednesday morning to get started again. I've got a couple little details I've been wanting to get done on this car, and Jeremy's coming over this morning to help me with it. The weather stripping on the driver's side door is cracked and broken, and the driver's side rear view mirror won't stay up. I ordered one in from Restoration World, and I found it out in the shop the other day. So today is the day we're going to go ahead and get these weather strips switched out and a brand new rear view mirror installed on the driver's door. Once we get everything done on the Malibu that I need to get done today, the plan is to go ahead and bring Kenny Powers' Camaro back in the shop and get started on it so that he can start racing in some of this slow car cash day stuff that's heating up around Columbus. In order to finish up putting the door panel back on, Jeremy needed to go down to Mark's and pick up some new clips and a couple more new trouble lights, because we've had some trouble with trouble lights lately.
Listen here, chump hole.
Hey.
I need these clips.
I gave you clips.
Where's that one?
Well, I haven't found that one yet.
Oh,
Give me-
I feel a shirt coming.
Now Jeremy's being a pretty incredible pain in the ass this morning, but he's about to step in a bucket of shit deep enough to drown an elephant.
If you get it right the first time, you wouldn't have to make so many trips.
So before I show you this next clip, you have to understand that Jeremy has a problem with losing my trouble lights, especially magnetized ones. He sticks them underneath the cars and then he leaves them there, and then they fall off as I'm going up the road. So when he brought this new one home yesterday, I really like that one, and it's cordless. You put it on the base and it recharges. Really nice. So I told Mark, I said, just go ahead and get me 2 more of them, because I know Jeremy's going to lose them.
You bought 3 of them?
3. The way you go through them, you need plenty.
Well, I thought
to
you
have
were
on
a
hand.
crappy salesman, but I guess you could sell anything to a numbnut.
The only trouble light Jeremy hasn't lost yet is this one, and it's 4 feet long. And speaking of numbnuts, he left his headlights on in the middle of the day. But I was nice enough to shut him off so his battery wouldn't be dead, and then I asked him if he even realizes why I bought 2 more of these lights. You know why I ordered 2 more of those lights?
You like collecting lights?
Because you lose them.
I don't lose lights.
So I present to the Court of Public Opinion Exhibit A. When I went out to make my first test hit last night, guess what fell out from underneath the car? If you guessed a Milwaukee work light belonging to Uncle Bucko, you guessed correct. Somehow that thing made the trip all the way to the test spot and stayed in the car even during the burnout. At least it wasn't one of my lights. Anyway, once we got the Malibu backed out of the shop, I adjusted my mirror, parked it out underneath the shade trees, and it was finally time for Kenny Powers to bring his Camaro into the shop. Now, Kenny and Harley have been busy moving and getting the kids enrolled in new schools, so they haven't had a whole lot of time or money to work on this Camaro lately. But now that they've got all the essentials taken care of, we can get back to working on Kenny Powers' 3rd Gen Camaro. But the first thing we're going to need is brake hoses for these rear calipers. So I load them up in the Malibu and take them down to Mark's to see if he can find some brake hoses for us so we can get the brakes back up on this car and maybe do some testing later tonight. Now, a few weeks ago, Kenny broke the spider gears in his 10-bolt, just like the spider gears broke in my 10-bolt in the Malibu. So he put this 12-bolt rear end up underneath the Camaro, but the brakes need to be replaced, and it takes different wheels with different offset to fit the rear end underneath the Camaro. So while we're waiting on brake parts, we go ahead and start working on the engine and some beef jerky. The last time Kenny tried to race his car, the engine was breaking up pretty bad. The spark plugs showed that the carburetor's jetted too rich, so I wanted to go ahead and do a little work on that, and I want to put a new set of plug wires on it before we put new plugs in it to make sure that we're not going to just foul the brand new spark plugs before we make a test hit later tonight. So while we're in the shop working on plug wires, plugs, and a carburetor, Harley loads up Kenny's wheels and takes him down to the tire shop to get tires switched out. A little while later, Uncle Bucko comes back from the farm, and he's got the rotors turned, and he starts cleaning up all the slide brackets to reassemble the rear brakes. At this point, all we really need to do is finish up making the new brake lines, hooking up the flex hoses, and fire this thing up. Now, we've never actually driven this car with this rear end in it. Billy recently reset the pinion angle, and the drive shaft is all new. So there's a lot of unknowns yet to work through before we can actually get this car back out on the road. So far, so good, but it's time for its first test drive to take it up the road and make sure that the brakes work and verify that the drive shaft and the rear end don't have any problems. So far, so good. The brakes feel good, the drive shaft's not making any vibration, and the rear end sounds perfectly fine. Now it's time to lean on this thing and make sure that the engine's going to run okay. The last time Kenny drove this car, he complained that it was breaking up, but the alternator quit working at about the same time, and we figured that the alternator was the problem. So I had Kenny go ahead and put one of our spare one-wire alternators on, but that didn't fix the problem. Now, according to the air-fuel ratio monitor, the engine's going lean anything past quarter throttle. So there may be a fuel system problem where we've got a fuel filter plugged up or something like that. So I bring the car back to the shop and I let Jeremy and Kenny tackle that while we go to dinner for Tommy's birthday. All right, guys, so we came back from dinner, and Kenny's going home for the night, but we're out here working on the car, and we just took it up the road after Kenny and Jeremy took the fuel filter apart, and the fuel filter had a bunch of crap in it, but it's still got a problem. We turned the fuel pressure up. It was sitting around 4 pounds. We turned it up to like 7, still does the same thing. I've checked the ignition system. It's got really good spark. The ignition system seems to be okay. Can't find anything wrong there. So the only thing I can think of is that there's something wrong in the carburetor. There's something plugged up in it. It's hard to tell. So we're going to dig into that again right now.
As soon as you tip into the secondaries,
Yeah.
and you open the throttle bleeds a certain amount,
Yeah.
it gets your lean.
And the air fuel monitor, which we're not sure if it actually works. I think it works.
Working.
It's just slow.
It's working, but for whatever reason, it's got like a 4-second delay.
Yeah. So we're going to pull the carburetor back off, and I'm going to dig into it here a little bit deeper and see if we can't figure this thing out. Uncle Robbie's taking the carburetor off for me. Hi, Pumpkin.
Supervisor.
Watching my man CJ out here on the big screen. So real quick here while we're screwing around tonight, this carburetor right there, that carburetor came off the 55, and that's the carburetor I tuned for that engine with a 4-speed, but it still should be fine. So while I'm digging into Kenny's carburetor here, we're going to go ahead and throw my 750 on. He's transferring the fuel log and everything over to that carburetor. We're going to throw my 750 on it, and Billy's going to take it up the road and see if it runs any better while I dig into Kenny's carburetor. The carburetor that Kenny purchased has a black coating, and the coating is coming off the main body. It's actually stuck to the gaskets. And if you look at the front, I mean, this coating has come off and it is just like, ugh, corroded.
Yeah, it's dusty.
I don't know that that's our problem, but it definitely doesn't help. This is not good. Vacuum cap completely disintegrated. It was on the vacuum port that gets vacuum as soon as you open the throttle blades. That is definitely a major problem. All right, so I feel like we've found a smoking gun here with this vacuum cap that had dry rotted. Billy and Robbie's bolting my 750 on it. We're gonna take it around the block and see what happens. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolute hatred, where do you think we're at on the scale with our neighbors?
Definitely 10.25%.
Gotta be load related, spark. At first I was like, maybe it's a rev limiter, but it's not, because it happens at different RPMs, different loads.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spark issue.
So we're going through some electrical things here on Kenny's Camaro. Yeah. So Kenny's never been really good with butt connectors, and Robbie tugged on this one and it came apart. Not saying that that is our problem, but it's definitely a problem. So we're going to fix that. So that's the ground wire for the MSD box. It goes straight to the battery, which is good, but it had a little butt connector there that it just wasn't crimped very well. So we'll fix that. We're seeking and destroying here, aren't we, Uncle Rob?
Process of elimination.
Process of elimination.
There's a butt connector down in here.
Kenny is the king of butt connectors.
Dude, that red wire runs from there to there to there to there to there around the battery to the positive terminal in the battery. It goes to all the way around the engine bay. When it could have just went there to there.
So we're trying to think back
All that other stuff.
to all the different problems that Kenny's Camaro has had.
This right here is our
And we remembered that one night at the track, the fan quit working for no reason. And that just so happened to be the same time that the car started to break up.
all that is just for
And then today we brought it in
for the
and the fan wouldn't work. And then the fan did work all of a sudden completely on its own. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and put a set of plugs in this thing. And Junior has found, what number is it? 7?
This would be number 135.
Number 5. It's the most difficult plug to get to on that side. And it just so happens it's not tight. It's finger tight, maybe. A little less than finger tight. We found yet another problem.
Yeah.
Uncle Robbie, lay it out for me.
Well, through process of elimination, just looking at the stuff, start looking through bell housing bolts, checking grounds, where everything's grounded at, so on and so forth. Engine harness is grounded right here at the bell housing bolts. The one was backed out probably 1/4 of an inch.
And
the
that's
other
where
one,
it grounds?
No, the one right underneath that is the one where it grounds, but it wasn't tight. So, I mean, it would move. Unibody car, you have to have every ground you possibly can. And if that's loose, that could make a instance of maybe when you put it under load,
And it's got rubber.
that it starts losing the ground and the ignition.
It's still got rubber mounts?
Yeah.
All right, so we put a new set of plugs in this thing. Junior's about to fire this thing up, and it's what, 12:30? It's about 12:30. So I'm figuring we're gonna have about 35 seconds before the warden in the house back there sends out the warning message to cease and desist operations for this evening. So I've told Junior to run this thing out the driveway as quietly as possible, get as far away from home as we can get, and then turn it loose. Because we're only gonna get one shot at this. Hey Rob.
Yeah.
Have you got a stopwatch on your phone?
Yeah.
Click it, because I'm figuring within about 35 seconds my phone's gonna go off. You hit it? It's on. We'll see how long it takes Vicky to send out the cease and desist message. Well, we can hear Billy off in the distance. The car sounds good. I think it's fixed. We're 4 minutes in and I haven't gotten a message from Vicky yet. I hate it when she proves me wrong.
She's fixed. She's fixed.
No breaking up?
Nothing.
With Gucci.
Yep. I videoed me getting on it.
Sweet.
I was driving my knee.
Oh my God. We Gucci, Uncle Rob.